Hello, welcome to my video about MRS Speed Dashboard. In this video, I'll explain how MRS Speed Dashboard works and how it helps MRS staff and managers to monitor all MRS activities and analyze the MRS performance at a glance. MRS systems have two kinds of data: list up data and calls data against that list up. MRS list up data can be loaded by specifying the date range for the list up, and MRS calls data can be loaded by specifying the calls date range. If we want to load only calls which are made against the loaded list up, then we can check the calls for list up only checkbox. We can also select a particular staff from MRS staff list to see only his calls data. This can help managers to analyze each staff person's performance. The first section is PM Reminders, that shows PM list up and calls data in graphical manner, which makes it really easy to understand. First gauge shows total list up count and count of calls made against that list up, which makes 87.5% implementation rate. In second gauge, attempted calls versus successful calls ratio is shown where contact with customers was successful. In next gauge, appointments ratio is shown against those successful calls, means how many appointments were made out of those successful calls. And finally, the last gauge shows customers show up rate, which means how many customers actually came to the dealership after their appointments. This graphical representation of huge PM MRS data made it very easy to view, understand, and analyze the performance of MRS system. Additionally, we can see a detailed report by clicking the View Details link. Next section shows SMS details for PM and FFS customers. It shows rate of total SMS sent versus total scheduled SMS. It also shows PM list and PM sent SMS rate and FFS list up and FFS SMS sent rate. We can also see a detailed MRS SMS report. The next section is Source of Appointment, which shows appointments made through MRS system. Like how many appointments are made, and from those appointments how many are inbound, means customers called and taken appointment. And how many are outbound, means MRS staff called customers and made appointments. While the last one shows appointments made through Customer Relations Department. Just like PM Reminders, this next section shows MRS details for FFS customers. It shows total list up and attempted calls rate, successful calls rate and successful appointments rate, and finally customers show up rate for these appointments. We can also see a detailed report for this FFS list up and calls data. This next section shows accuracy of customers' contact data by displaying percentage of correct contacts. It shows count of wrong contacts, incorrect or unavailable contacts, and finally count of those where customers either sold their vehicle or it was stolen. Next section shows total appointments made through MRS and number of appointments which are achieved, means came to the dealership for repair. It also shows missed appointments, which did not come, and also incoming appointments count. A detailed report can also be viewed for this data. The next section shows overall revenue generated, total labor amount, parts and lubes amount, and sublet amounts. A complete detailed appointments revenue report can also be viewed for more details. No appointment reasons section displays a column chart that shows all the reasons of not achieving appointments. Column chart makes it easier to understand and analyze all this data. No appointments reason report shows details of customers and reasons for no appointment. The last section shows contribution of each type in MRS appointments. Like PM appointments versus others, GR type appointments versus all others, and total appointments from all other MRS data. MRS Speed combines and display all this data at one place so that managers don't have to manually gather all this data from the system. This graphical representation of complex and huge amount of data of MRS system makes it easy to understand and analyze overall performance of MRS staff. Find flaws in the process or system and improve them to attract more customers that can ultimately benefit in achieving business targets. For more details about MRS Speed Dashboard and MRS system, please contact iFish Technologies.